Well, hello and welcome to Ensuring Financial Services for All, Leading Financial Inclusion with Dr. James Mwangi, part of the 2021 Business for Peace Spotlight Series. My name is Kafui Day, and it's my great pleasure to host today's interview with CEO of Equity Group Holdings and a 2020 Business for Peace Honoree, Dr. James Mwangi. At Business for Peace, we aim to recognize, inspire, and accelerate business-worthy leadership by hosting impactful discussions around sustainability and ethical business practices. We're now on day 3 of the Spotlight series on SDG number 8, decent work and economic growth. Throughout the day, we will be highlighting leading voices around sustainable investing and financial inclusion. We'll be joined by leaders from the financial and investment community who are closing the financial gap towards reaching the 2030 agenda. I'm honored and very excited at this time to introduce one of these exemplary business leaders who's endeavoring to ensure financial services for all, Dr. James Mwangi. As the CEO of Equity Group Holdings, Dr. Mwangi has worked to democratize financial access in Africa, giving much of the unbanked population opportunities for broader economic participation. Today, Equity is one of the most inclusive banks in the world, with 12.7 million clients across the socioeconomic spectrum. Dr. Mwangi, it's a real pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you very much for having me today.
In your own words, please tell us about your journey to become the leader of one of the most inclusive financial institutions in the world. We want to know, for example, why did you choose banking as your vehicle for purpose? How did you get started? What problems were you trying to solve with the equity model?
This has been a long journey spanning 25 years. It has been inspired by the need to bring financial inclusion as a tool of socioeconomic transformation in Africa. And we purposed to change one life at a time, transforming lives, becoming our calling every day, giving our people honor and dignity in life, and more importantly, expanding opportunities by supporting those who are in wealth creation to scale their operations so that they can provide markets for those in the communities that host them and provide opportunities for employment for young people who are seeking livelihoods.
How did you get started, Dr. Mwangi? I'm sure a lot of people are curious. When did it all begin? How did it begin?
It all started in the village when we looked at Nyagatogo village, and there was only the school principal who had a bank account, and everybody else was excluded. And having been a banker, the challenge befell on me. 4 village colleagues, my neighbors, thought, yeah, we could start a small community circle. And from that humble beginning, we started. 11 years later, we were technically insolvent because the village could not support the scale that could cover our operating cost. And that's where I was pulled in. I was a banker and challenged for a turnaround. We were ranked number 66 out of 66 in Kenya as a bank. We were technically insolvent. But looking back today, from 2,000 villagers who were our customers, we have 15 million customers. So since you got your data, we have added another 2.5 million customers. We have grown to a balance sheet of $11 billion US from $300,000. And from the village of Kagema, we are now in 6 countries and a rep office in a 7th country. But really, this has become more of a purpose-first business. We are driven by passion and enthusiasm to see dignity and honor in lifestyle and in livelihoods. We're driven by a desire to see dreams come true. And that is what has propelled us. When you look 25 years later, we're now the largest bank in East and Central Africa, not just in terms of total assets, but also in terms of number of customers, in terms of market capitalization. We are listed in Nairobi Stock Exchange and cross-listed in Uganda and Rwanda. And we have become the most profitable bank, suggesting and supporting the concept, purpose can be profitable. So doing good can be as good as doing well, and can be the driver of doing well. So essentially, it's what we have learned a lot is that the concept of shared prosperity, because that's what has really driven us, ensuring the host communities become the anchor stakeholder and receives as much as the other stakeholders. When we were in school, we were taught about 3 factors of production: labor, land, and the capital. I've come to appreciate a community is a 4th factor.
Awesome. I'm going to, impressive achievements. I want to pick up on something you said about purpose. So purpose can be a driver for profit. I mean, could you have achieved your purpose in any other industry apart from where you are now, banking?
I think purpose can be achieved in any other industry. We thought of philanthropy, and we decided to form Equity Group Foundation and make it a twin engine, the second engine in our twin business engine, to create parallel to the commercial engine, a social engine. Equity Group Foundation now is bigger in terms of value creation than the equity commercial arm, such that our social value is quantified to be higher than the economic value. We are in agriculture, and we have managed to transform 800,000 peasant farmers into agribusinesses. We have 38,000 orphans and needy kids benefiting from high school scholarships. We have 17,000 kids who have transited to university, and we are supporting them with paid internships. We have 800 scholars that we have sent to leading global universities, with 256 of them having admission to Ivy League schools. So looking at those and seeing another 3.2 million social safety net payment beneficiaries being supported by equity, that's almost a state in itself. It's an economy of 3.3 million people. We have trained 2.3 million young people, but focused on women, on financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and got them started off with credit because they have capacity. When we look at that disruption, it is as similar as the way we democratized banking or financial access. The disruption itself, the organization of where things can be done. So purpose can be in any aspect. We started last year, just to share the last one, we felt that 40% of all default that occurred in our credit book was because of ill health. And we asked ourselves, what can we do? And we decided to do a health insurance program. The demand was overwhelming, and quickly, supply side collapsed. And then it's when we remembered that we had sponsored 17,000 scholars to university. 1,800 has done medicine. And we said, why don't we train these young doctors on health entrepreneurship, create a franchise for them. In just under 2 years, we now have 42 clinics. So far this year, they have seen 391,000 patient visits. And essentially, now we have been able to issue a health insurance program because we have been able to create supply. So essentially, it's not just in banking. It is, as I said, purpose can be profitable. And if it is profitable, then purpose can be scalable and sustainable. And that is what we are seeing now in the health sector. We have an aspiration to have 1,000 clinics within 5 years, and then we'll be able to provide more health services than government.
It almost seems to me that you are more than just a financial institution. How do you see the work that Equity is doing? You are into so many areas, empowering people socially, not just financially, and going to various areas which you would probably not associate immediately with banking and finance. How do you see yourselves?
We see ourselves as a movement of socioeconomic transformation. Our financial service is just an engine. Us is a movement where we are every day, we are making progress to see lives changed, livelihoods improved, opportunities for wealth creation created. That movement of socioeconomic transformation has a commercial engine. So financial services is just an engine that we chose to use so that we can be sustainable and scalable. And knowing the role of finance in intermediating, taking from those who have and giving to those who don't have. So it is a question of surplus and deficit and balancing them. And essentially, our ambition is to be able to reach 100 million followers. We don't call our followers customers. We call them members because they are members to a socioeconomic movement. And hopefully by 2025, we'll have 100 million customers empowered to realize their customers and turning into loyal members, advocating for others. And then we'll have exponential growth after that.
Impressive achievements, impressive things that to look forward to in the future. But let's take it back to the very beginning. I was listening to one of your interviews where you said that at the beginning, you saw your customers not as other banks, but the mattress where people put their money. And you were basically competing against the mattresses of the people who had no access to banking. Looking at your journey from that time till now, it's breathtaking. What has accounted for this quantum leap?
We are like a creation of our experiences and the way we are socialized. I was born in a humble background. I lost my dad when I was a toddler. My mother had not gone to any formal school, and she was left with 7 kids to look after. And essentially, I understood the struggles of feeding. And if it were not for the community, I could not have accessed education. I became a beneficiary. And that bridge that the community built for me to access education so that I could be who I am today, I decided to keep that bridge on and keep on scaling it. And when I look back, the 38,000 scholars who have benefited from our secondary education, the 17,000 scholars who are in our universities, or the 800 scholars who are in international universities on full scholarships, give me the fulfillment that we can change the world. Because I was given, I decided to give back to community. And now you can see the scale. If each of them give back, it is. But why did I do it? It's because I understood the circumstances. My mother taught me, as she shared the little that was available with the 7 of my siblings, that it was not about feeding to your food. It was about a shared opportunity where everybody gets a share. And as a family, we grew out. And because I learned to share at a tender age, I was able to manage my greed. And whatever I have, I'm willing and always willing to share. If you look and I've tried to inculcate that culture in my family. If you look at this year, last year, my family gave 4.5 million dollars towards the COVID fight, just because we felt this was an opportunity to give back to society that
will be establishing this conversation. Thank you very much for that response. So it's your focus in the beginning was on the unbanked population, and we have listeners and viewers from all around the world. There's a question here from Saeed in South Africa who wants to find out from you what the size of the unbanked population in Africa is, and how your bank assists aspiring entrepreneurs and small business with no good financial records to access funding. So size of unbanked population, and then how equity is helping people who don't have great financial records to access finance.
When we started, only 4% of Kenyans had bank accounts. So 96% was unbanked. So banking was more of niche. And so there was no actor in the marketplace. And we said our competition was the mattress where people used to hide their money. And the question was, if mattress is our competitor, how do we beat the mattress? And when we analyzed the market, the mattress as a banker, because my mom was keeping her money under the mattress, the issue is she had absolute access to her liquidity. She had no charges. There was no distance to cover. And that is how we developed the equity business model. We said, let's remove ledger fee. Let's remove standing order charges. Let's remove minimum account opening balance. Let's give full liquidity. Get your money when you need it. And let's create a high volume, low margin business model driven by experience, not by product, because the mattress gave people a better experience. It was not a product. And essentially, today, Equity is home to 15 million customers, 60% of all bank accounts in Kenya from 2000, and 87% of Kenyans are financially included. When you look across Africa, financial inclusion ranges from 5 to 6% in DRC to Kenya and South Africa, ranging towards 80. All the others are in between. And so we have chosen, for instance, to go to DRC and try to replicate what we have done in Kenya in 30 years, in 10 years, and see whether we can lift DRC from 5-6% financial inclusion to 8. Technology has become a big enabler. The brand of Equity now is a big enabler because we have a proven track record. Partnerships have become a big enabler, and collaboration. So and regulation too has changed to accommodate change.
It's interesting you're talking about scaling up. You just talked about DRC. And just on the side, the previous questioner was bringing us a question from South Africa. Do you have your eyes on that market, apart from East and Central Africa, Dr. Mwangi?
Our selection of the countries has been driven by where we would make the biggest impact. When you look at South Africa, it's fairly well banked. So the next call would be Ethiopia. That is the next priority if it opens. So countries that gives us a huge market and countries that are underserved, such that the headroom is big enough. And when we get there, then we can have significant impact. And that enables us to have 100 million customers by 2025.
From a small building society to now an African multinational, impressive. What are the key challenges when you decide to scale up into countries beyond your home country of Kenya?
A couple of things have been huge challenges. The first one is regulation. We're in 6 countries, and each country has a different set of regulation. And when you try to comply this, the cost of compliance become a very big challenge. The second one is currencies. Different currencies are behaving differently, and you keep on experiencing not operational costs, but economic price cost, like exchange rates, translation rate losses, that keeps on eroding your efforts. And the fact that you can't move currencies between countries, such that we can't truly do scale on moving money where we have excess to where there is deficit because of exchange, different currencies that behave differently and economies being, and the last one is differences in culture. What we have realized is culture is a very significant driver of behavior, and different cultures really dictates how we do things and how we customize, try to adapt products and services so that they fit within the cultural context. So that variance. Now, the variance of culture is not even at the country level. It's at sometimes at the district level. It's at the village level. So adaptation to accommodate people and to work in tandem with what people value in terms of culture, it has also proven to be a challenge. And lastly, it's the issue of technology. The pace of technological change keeps on making systems legacy within very short period, even before you have earned your return on investment. And of course, the threat of cyber crime and cyber fraud is increasingly a challenge that one has to go into financial services with their eyes open.
Lots of challenges to deal with, issues of culture, issues of currency, issues of technology, cyber crime. I was listening to one of your previous interviews, and the host was excited about what equity has done in the past 30 years, but also disappointed that there seems to be only one equity in Africa, and the model seems not to be replicated elsewhere. Are you equally disappointed about that?
I'm not disappointed in the sense that we are trying to create a center of excellence. We have been inspired and motivated by the fact that we have now 36 case studies done on equity, 3 by Harvard, 3 by Stanford, Columbia University, and on and on. Lagos Business School has done 9. So we are hoping that this depository of knowledge will be what will be used as a global model that is purpose-driven, that is purpose-first, that is motivated by a higher calling, that is mission-driven, and that staff are motivated by the larger good to society, and a model that believes in shared prosperity. Most people have been watching. It's like conversation. We start by storming, and then norming, and then delivering. Maybe we are now in the phase of accepting the equity model because of the case studies, and then hopefully in the very near future, and that's my hope, we'll start seeing the equity model being replicated because it has proven itself.
Okay, so mission first and then profits follow later. This is a comment from Coach who says, how can you, and he's basically, you've answered his question because he was asking how you can share such an integrated approach to the financial industry so that other players in the system can take banking's social enterprises. So thank you for that, Coach. And there's another question here, which is linked to what you have been doing. So this is Saeed Mohammed, says he's a strategic relationship business banker based in South Africa. And he has managed to bank refugees and immigrants in South Africa so that they can now have bank accounts using their refugee papers. I know you've done some great work in Kenya with refugees in Dadaab and in Kikuma. Can you tell us a little bit about that and share that experience with us?
Yeah, Dadaab and Kakuma are some of the largest refugee camps in the world. They are both in Kenya. And we chose that to promote peace between refugees and the host communities, we needed to create economic activities that they could share. So we set a branch in Kakuma and Dadaab, and now we have set a branch in northern Uganda in a refugee camp. And ideally, it was more of creating better integration and providing a sustainable way of maintaining refugees and integrating them within society. And what we have seen is that refugees have overcome the challenge of risk of death. Overcoming the challenge of doing business is much lower. They have been very successful with no issues. What we have now seen is partnerships, and I want to recognize IFC have come on board and said, can we give you a credit sharing guarantee so that you can scale what the work you are doing? We've seen people like UNICEF come on board, UNHCR have come on board, UN Women has come on board. So hopefully, and then they have embraced that social safety net payments to refugees can come through bank accounts so that we give honor and dignity to refugees. They are not seen as handouts, they are seen as drawings from their current account. And then we are using that data to give them the first initial loans so that they can start acquiring assets. And we have seen that they can live normal lives, though in displacement, because of embracing them and integrating them in economic activities that supports livelihoods.
Thank you for that. I will switch momentarily to a question on the SDGs. But before that, there's a comment here from Susanna Ayako, who is on the Zoom call, saying there's potential for alleviating poverty through provision of bundled financial services to members or customers. How well poised is the financial industry to provide these bundled financial services from your perspective?
I think, Susan, that is the next a great transformation or business transformation for the financial sector. If we look at equity, we have now dropped the tag of licenses and we have become just merely equity. It's one equity where we bundle all products. We've realized our financial banking products are demand-driven. Insurance products are push-driven or supply-driven. And we have said, if you put them together and bundle them together, because they are complementary products, then you'll be able to not only to enable, but to protect what has been achieved by your members. So essentially that is a very important, but you need to go beyond financial services. And remember, it's just one person who is consuming. So the bundling should be of lifestyle. We should enable people to get all that they need in their life and in their lifestyle and enable them. And banking can do that by offering 4 products. Move, that includes payment transfers, access to liquidity, whether it is loans or from savings, and then insure. And that is how we have bundled our products. 4 major products, but offered as one. And that is the concept of one equity.
Mwangi, thanks. I want to now switch to talk about the SDG. So with inclusive banking in mind, how does the approach at equity relate to the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 agenda? For the SDGs, I'm looking at Goal 8, which deals with decent work and employment for all. How does your approach relate to those SDGs?
Thank you very much. Let me, before I go to Sustainable Development Goal number 8, equity has embraced the 17 SDGs and ensured they are embedded in the DNA of our offerings, whether it's products and services. And to be able to do that, then we have combined economic and social components together. And we have signed with all the UN agencies in the countries that we are operating in. And we have become an implementing agent. We are using the dead capital because we have already invested and said, as we do well, we can do good. And UN agencies are working closer with us. They provide capacity building, business support services. They can provide with us with credit guarantee sharing, risk sharing. And more importantly, they can help us build supply chains and ecosystems for the marketplace. So that partnership has helped us to do quite a lot. So when it comes to agriculture, we're working with World Food Program, IFAD, and FAO. as a package. And as a result, we have been able to develop products. When it comes to women, we are working with World Bank, UN Women, and saying, what can we do? Our flagship product was co-designed and co-developed with UNDP, Fanikisha, making it possible for women. And that has now eventually become the flagship. Now, turning to decent work, Equity, one is a big employer. We have 8,500. We must demonstrate fair pay, fair treatment, enabling environment, equal treatment, gender parity in everything as a model in society. And I'm really glad that when you look at our board, it is 4 men and 4 women. You look at the organization, 9 executives, 4 are women and 5 are men. That model to me is then a fair pay that is fairly competitive. As a bank, with 12 million customers, 5 million enterprises that we support, we are the biggest maybe builders of employment because we have rolled out what we are calling Young Africa Work Program. This is a program with MasterCard Foundation where we are targeting 5 million decent jobs created by enterprises that we offer 420 billion shillings in credit, or 4.2 billion US dollars in credit. For every enterprise, the target is that they build 5 to 10 jobs. In return, we support them with the credit, and MasterCard support them with technical capacity building. And where need be, particularly for women, they provide them with risk sharing guarantee. So that ability of using finance to support enterprises that are in wealth creation means those enterprises not only provide jobs for their employees, but provide a marketplace for the raw materials they are buying from their host communities. So it is creation of markets, creation of employment, and creation of physical fulfillment by the goods that they produce.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who are on the call, please send your questions to Dr. Mwangi by using the Q&A box on the Zoom toolbar. Before I look at the future, just a quick point on inclusive banking. Mr. Mohammed wants to know how you are dealing with the Muslim population in Africa. How do you provide solutions for them? Does your bank offer any tailor-made solutions for Muslims in terms of Islamic banking? Or is that something you want to look forward to in the future?
Thank you very much. We've just started the journey. We have now developed the product. We have bought the system, and we have made an application to the central bank for approval because we are a community-based bank, and we should serve everybody within the community. And we are building out that capability.
Thank you. Let's look at the future now, Dr. Mwangi. So what does it hold for Equity Bank and for you personally, now that you've spent close to 4 decades building the most inclusive bank on planet Earth? Where do you want to take this, and how do you want to scale it? Are there any areas where you still want to make some impact, or are you maxed out?
Yeah, there is that question is timely, maybe to talk on the thought process that we are going through. Equity has asked itself about the environment we are in. We have seen that COVID-19 has had as much devastating impact as maybe the Great Depression. That is, the economy is where it was during the Great Depression and the Second World War. And we have asked ourselves, how has the world got itself out of this catastrophe that it finds itself after the COVID-19 disruption? And we have realized from history that it's governments that stimulate economies by spending significantly to get the economies back. But looking at the 6 economies that we operate in, we have realized that the headroom that governments had on physical space is very limited. And they have spent everything they could over the last 1 year. And we have realized the private sector have to come in. And we have decided to develop what we are calling the East and Central Africa Recovery and Transformation of Program. And this program is mirrored around the Marshall Plan that rebuilt Western Europe. We have studied it and realized America supported Western Europe with 0.9% of the GDP of the economies then. And that acted as a significant stimulus. When we look at the 6 countries we operate in, we realize we have liquidity of up to 1.5% of their GDP. And then we have said, why don't we deploy these 4 billion US dollars using the East African Community platform, using the African Continental Free Trade Area, and stimulate trade and economic activities among SMEs, driven by cross-border trade, and replace global supply chain with national and regional supply chain as the opportunity for the marketplace and demand. And we have lobbied with the governments for the 6 countries to create the enabling environment. We have lobbied with the development banks. They have signed in to support us with long-term loans and guarantees. We have lobbied with the UN, and the resident representatives of the UN in the 6 countries have signed up in this partnership. And so it's a private sector led transformation plan and recovery plan after COVID. And I'm glad that that is where our experience, our energy, the resource and the blood is going. And I'm so excited that we have crowded in the UN agencies, we have crowded in the development agencies, the World Bank and IFC, and our governments and the private sector. The objective is to give 5 million enterprises a revolving fund of 4.2 billion US dollars. The UN agencies will do capacity building to the SMEs, and each SME will be challenged to give 5 to 10 jobs. Worst case scenario will build 225 million jobs. Best case scenario will create 50 million jobs in East and Central Africa. And hopefully that will provide the stimulus that will get the East and Central African economies to bounce back. We are very lucky that Kenya seems to be pulling well. We are very lucky Uganda has started on its oil project, and DRC commodities are doing well. So there is a tailwind that seems to have favored this regional Marshall Plan.
Almost just about wrapping up, but just enough time for me to find out about how you train your managers and your employees to deliver on what equity believes in. How do you ensure that good governance spreads out across your organization, from Kenya to DRC to Tanzania to Rwanda, wherever you are? How do you do that?
Governance is central to every success. An organization can never deliver more than its quality. And quality of an organization is defined by its governance. Governance is institutionalized by policies and structures. And if you look, equity is very, very strong on policies. Equity is very strong on structure, from the board to the management and to the staff, and relationship with customers and community, as we said. The shared prosperity model is driven by households and enterprises within. And we use an ecosystem approach so that nobody is left behind in society. That governance structure is what has helped us. How do we train it? I'm the chief mentor and coach. That's my biggest role. Is not sitting in my desk, is coaching the next generation. And I'm also the champion of organizational culture. Our governance structures are embedded and practices are embedded in our catcher, and I'm the Chief Catcher Champion.
I like that, CCC, Chief Culture Champion. And to wrap up this conversation, I'd like to find out from you, what is the one lesson from your work that you'd love to leave our audience with? One lesson, big lesson.
The biggest lesson, particularly about organization, is that organization can never be better than its leaders. And we should always be looking at the organization we are leading. And when we see them, we should be seeing ourselves in those organizations. So when we shape up, then organization shape up. It is not by a leader saying, it's by a leader doing. And that is how a leader shape a society. Leaders are looked upon, and leaders have the power of one to influence communities in which they lead.
Dr. James Mwangi, thank you very much, asante sana, for this inspiring interview. And I hope we've set the tone for the conversations to come. We're looking forward to following your continued success and leadership on the world stage. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kafui, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of Business for Peace, I'd like to say thank you for all of you for joining us today. You want to be catching all of our digital events from the 2021 Business for Peace Spotlight Series continuing after this particular session. You can find a link to the Spotlight Series program in the chat right now. And don't worry, if you haven't registered, you can also directly join any of these events from Business for Peace's Facebook live stream, which is available to click in the chat. My name is Kafui Day. Have a great day. Thanks for joining, and I wish you an excellent session ahead. God bless. Asante sana. Thank you.